Enjoy this conversation with me, Maureen Kimani, every Friday from 9 a.m. on our Health Corner show here at CAPUCHIN TV. Your health is your wealth. Enjoy this conversation with me, Maureen Kimani, every Friday from 9 a.m. on our Health Corner show here at CAPUCHIN TV. Your health is your wealth.
Hello, dear viewer. A very good morning. Thank you for joining us yet on another episode of our Health Corner show right here on CAPUCHIN TV with me, Maureen Kimani, where we bring you conversations about families, mental health, well-being, and so many more. Well, today we have a very interesting conversation, and that is Catholic youth engagement in life and family advocacy here in Kenya. And as you can see down below on your TV or on your screen, wherever you're watching us through your phone, thank you for joining us on this conversation, because we all know how youth are very important in our societies today, and of course at community and large. And they're very important because if you take a look at them, they're very energetic, ambitious. They don't give up until they get whatever they want or they reach to a point that they want. Well, and that's why we want to bring this conversation to you. How can we engage and have these youth in our societies help and advocate the positive impact about families and life in our communities? Well, joining me in the studio, we have two gentlemen, and they will be introducing themselves in just a few. And if you'd love to be part of this conversation, you can reach us on 0717-424-866, or you can use our SMS number, that is 21760. Welcome to the conversation. Thank you. And just to mention that this program is brought to you by CAPUCHIN TV in partnership with LifeSite News, that is a Canadian Catholic conservative anti-abortion advocacy website and news publication. Welcome to the discussion. Hello, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good to have you here.
Oh, it's a real pleasure.
And thank you for making time to have this discussion. I'm sure our viewers are very delighted to have you and to listen and to know what do you have come to share with us. And of course, they can be able to learn from whatever you'll be sharing with them about life and family as the youth is concerned. Well, but before we do that, maybe you can introduce yourself to our viewer. We can start with you, Gregory.
Okay. My name is Gregory Shea. I'm originally from Canada, from an Irish family, so I have the two passports. I move around the world with that. I've been in Kenya for the better part of 10 years, increasingly with more time spent here. Otherwise, I'm based in China, Hong Kong, and I've been I was originally a diplomat in Asia for Canada, and then I got involved in business, and mostly in the technology business. And I started coming here looking into things like the business that's coming up around Mpesa and other lines of business that are of interest to me. I also spent some time in London, so I kind of go back and forth. But over time, I've been spending more and more time here because I find that it's more and more interesting. And there's more and more wonderful things happening. It reminds me very much of 30 years ago when I first went to China. It's the same kind of, it's happening, the energy is finally aligning. And there's a lot of difficulties. China was poorer then, for sure, than Africa is today.
Okay.
I mean, it took many years for China to get to where Africa is today, if you can imagine. And so you can see that when things finally start to settle and come into some sort of cohesion, they can really be very dynamic. So that's one of the reasons that attracted me to come here. But also, I must say, as a I grew up as a Catholic. My father was very involved in the pro-life movement. He was very active with the organization that eventually became LifeSite News, which started in Toronto and now is based in the US, Europe and Canada. And now they're active in Africa, of course, and I've been helping them with that. And that's how I got to know Tobias. So those different threads come together in terms of my background, my time in Asia, and now my time in Africa. The thing that attracts me most, though, is the dynamism, not just of the economy, but of the people and of the church and the faith. It's very wonderful to see people alive in their faith, whether they're Catholic or other traditions. Whereas where I come from, we've been through a long period of turning away from faith and turning into belief in ourselves. And we see the results of that in social media. We see where the poison that comes from that. I think we're going to come out of that in the West, but maybe the Africans will show us the way home. So.
Thank you very much and welcome here at Capuchin TV, and thank you for making time. Just moving on, we can have Tobias kindly explain to our viewer and tell them, what do you do?
Thank you so much. My name is Tobias Nauruki. I'm the Empowered Youth Coalition Africa Regional Coordinator, a youth mentor, and also a staunch young Catholic. As Gregory has mentioned, indeed, in Kenya today, the young people, with their energy, synergy, and the unity they have, we really have a lot to do. I've been in this advocacy space for a very long time now. This is my 4th year advocating for life in family, because I noted that being a young person, I really have a future to defend. I have a future to hold on the values, a future to hold on the Catholic teachings, and a future not only to hold on my values and the values of the church, but also to disseminate the same values that I've gained from the Catholic Church, from the spaces I've been trained in, to the young persons whom I am, they are my agent, to help them also to realize that indeed we need to move together and change the world, change the trajectory of the conversation that we are having today, not only focusing on the work issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much to both of you for making time and for agreeing to come and to share to our viewers on our Health Corner show. Well, let's begin on our conversation. As I mentioned earlier, when we talk about youth engagement in life and family, I don't know if so many people understand what do we mean by that. Tobias, maybe you can explain to our viewer.
Today, the reasons why the topic is so interesting is because many young people today, we are coming from families where parents are not taking responsibilities to take care of us. And the only way now to make these young people to be able to realize that indeed there's someone who's looking after you, to be able to help you to be on the right path, is to engage them. That's why when we talk about youth engagement, when you reflect back in school, the curriculum you're taken through, the school programs you're taken through, there's a missing link. Today's schools are focusing on results oriented, and they're leaving the young people to be engaged on some key pertinent issues that are going to affect them in the future. And that's why choosing to engage the young people on these issues, which are going to affect them not only even now, the generations to come, is better. A Swahili proverb says that samaki mkunja ngali mbichi. Fold a fish when it is still fresh, because when it dries up, you can't be able to fold it. It will crack into pieces. That's the situation we are in now as young people. If we are not involved, engaged, modeled, mentored today, tomorrow we will be hard cause, will be hard rocks to be broken. It will be very hard for the professionals today. Our parents today, I can use an example for Gregory, who is now at level 5. At level 5, he's above 50 years now. The young people below the age of 40 years cannot be able to align the values Gregory went through with his parents from the Catholic background. Even if you come from a rich Catholic background, parents with values aligned with the Catholic faith, but they don't engage you on these issues, have a discussion on why you should defend life but not choose abortion, why you should maintain your dignity and get married than to involve in lesbianism and homosexuality. You will not listen to this. You will not have this conversation until when you bring the youth back and have this conversation at church level through the existing protocols. Then the young people will realize their values. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tobias. And Gregory, in your introduction part, you mentioned about you've come from a family where the pro-life and pro-family advocate is being practiced. Where do you think, what is the importance of having this youth engagement?
Well, it was very interesting what Tobias was saying, because when I was young, and this is the 70s and 80s, right? It's going back 50 years. Already and I grew up in Toronto, which is a very Americanized city. It's now beyond Chicago, as there's New York, LA, and Toronto. It's a huge international city, very sophisticated. And it was a simpler place back then, much smaller. But nonetheless, it was a city, and it was very much influenced by the US and British culture, popular culture, and things were shifting. So the tolerance, going to church was declining, and all of those signs that you're seeing starting to happen here. Well, I lived through them 40, 50 years ago. And I can see that at first people were fairly complacent. That's okay, you do you, and you can be religious if you want over here, and over here we can be not, and you can do whatever you want to do. And that went on for a couple of decades. But what happens is there's either light or the absence of light. There's either truth or the absence of truth. And when you start to give quarter to the absence of truth, when you stop advocating the truth, when you stop defending Christ's teaching, it's not without consequence. It'll be like it seeps in, and it starts to take over more and more places and spaces in your society with non-truthful behavior or belief. To the point today, flash forward a few decades, and we have children being cut off from their parents and assigned by chemicals and surgery to a different gender.
Sure. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, if you go against that, you're deplatformed. I wouldn't be able to have that conversation. I used to be a teacher briefly before I was a diplomat. Right? I was in a Catholic high school. It was a Jesuit high school that I used to go to myself. Many of those colleagues who stayed in teaching, in Catholic teaching in the West, could not even say what I'm saying right now in the Catholic school, let alone in the public, to be very honest. So it just creeps in and slowly starts to strangle everything, so that you cannot speak truth. You cannot say that there is two genders. I can identify as whatever I want today, and then I can be fluid. Why not identify as a different race? Oh, well, I'm Chinese. You may not know it, but I am, and you should assign me the pronoun of Wing Chong Fong or whatever, and then you have to observe that, So it's gotten to that point where it's folding in on itself. We can see the social instability, and there'll be economic and other coming from the West. And Africa's in a position where it's just starting to get its stride. It reminds me very much of China 20, 30 years ago. It's really starting to click, and the infrastructure is starting to come in, and people are starting to get access through. Well, the good part of the internet is that you can access and communicate and do stuff and create. And the bad part is the poisonous content.
Yeah.
Right? So you're really at this fascinating moment where you have the tools to live by information and be truthful to it, and embrace your African values, as I often hear them say. And to me, they just sound like good Judeo-Christian values,
Very true.
So anyway, I know that was a bit of a long answer, but I was very fortunate in having parents that love each other. My father's passed on. My mom's still with us. God bless her. And most of my aunts and uncles and families around me were like that. It was unusual even then. Like, divorce was much more popular, but not so much in my immediate circle. It wasn't until I went to college that I started to realize I was a freak. So many people have so many issues, right? And then I started adjusting my thinking about the way the world is, and it's taken me a very long time to get to the point where I'm starting to understand a little bit. But being in Africa has been a real tonic, because it's kind of like a second chance. Like you're back to, you set the clock back to where things aren't absolutely crazy and insane. They're starting to come in. You can see it through the social media and through the NGOs and all their money and trying to promote these multiple letter things. You can see it happening, but it's not gone there yet. So I'm very excited to have the chance to have that life experience, to be here to work with wonderful people like you and Tobias, and maybe hold the line, you know.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, and for that insight, Gregory. When you talk about, you've been mentioning about the Catholic Church. Tobias, maybe you can tell us what are some of the activities, or how has the Catholic Church here in Kenya been involving the youth to make sure that they are actively being involved in the advocacy of this family and life?
Thank you for that good question. When that question is asked, always I ask myself and reflect where I went to school. Since my childhood, I was brought up in a Catholic family, and one key pertinent issue for the young person, especially a Catholic young person, is the catechism of the Catholic Church, which is mostly from a family perspective. A child, when he's around 6 to 7 years, you must undergo that before you are baptized. So catechism is one of the key area that the young people are taken through. It doesn't matter your age. Catechism is on a daily basis. When you attend mass, you are undergoing catechism, because you're being reoriented on what the Catholic Church is looking forward to formate you and be a very wonderful looking young person in the future. And that's why we have priests today. We have nuns today, because they're gone through. Then that's where again you get your calling, either to be a priest or in the future you get married. Another area is through chaplaincies. Back then when I was in university, I served as the chairperson of the Catholic Students Association in my university. And that's also an area where the church gives a platform for the young people. At that level, the young people can be able to engage on their own, without mixing with the old people, because they perceive when they're with the old people, they can't speak their issues. So they're given a platform with a chaplain in church who speaks their language. And during Mass and also during their own activities they're engaged in, they have their own programs. I remember back then in our chaplaincy, we used to have programs like choir, where all the time when you're free, you engage in choir, singing songs. Then we have discussions, Bible study groups, where topics are aligned on your issues. So the young people are given a chance to suggest topics they feel a script can be written on that, then they be discussed during their Bible study discussions. So such platforms are there. Then lastly, another area, the church today in Kenya, through the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, have given the young people a platform. We call it the YCA. The YCA is a platform for the young people, where when you're still young,
Young Catholics Association.
Yes, the Young Catholic Association,
Yeah, exactly.
where when you're still young, you are not fit to join the Catholic Men Association, you join YCA. You're not fit to join the Catholic Women Association, you join the YCA.
Very
But the young
true.
people are missing to join that, because they feel they're entitled, some of them. In primary, we have YCS, the Young Catholic Students, YCS. YCS is also now a platform for the primary and high school students. So all these platforms the Catholic Church has given us. The missing link here is the church has now forgotten that these platforms are very important now. Which programs can we be able to have the young people be given a chance to speak on the language of defending the life, defending the family, and also being modeled to be good young people. Some are being used just as a celebration. Majority is just a platform, a 1 year annual event, and then we forget about it. But if it is taken seriously, and this is an appeal to our Catholic bishops and the parish priests, the chaplains, that let us use these platforms. Give the young people their positions. They have their leadership, but are they given platforms to be trained and even being given a chance to speak about what they're supposed to speak about? Bringing in experts like what Gregory is saying to speak to them, so that they listen and make judgment, and decisions can be made, then they live their life in a better way. Yeah, so there are so many platforms in the Catholic Church.
Right.
What we're only missing is how are we utilizing them. Yeah.
Okay, and I love that you mentioned about having the YCS club, not only just in primary, high school, we also have the same clubs in university and colleges, just to mention about that. Well, let's move on to Gregory, and I love that you started sharing about your history and how you've grown up. When you talk about these Catholic youth engagement, life and family advocacy, what are some of the other challenges maybe youths are facing out there trying to have these advocacy?
Well, that's a good question. In a way, the endangered life at its margins, right, from natural birth to natural death, that's always the belief of the Church, as witnessed from the teaching of Jesus and in the Scripture and in the the letters and the proclamations of the Church and the magisterium. We know this. But when life is threatened in the womb and life is threatened at the end of life, that's pretty obvious, right? But how does it get to the point of being threatened in that way? There's a predicate, there's that which happens before to set up the possibility for such a risky situation to happen. And that has to do with the basic understanding of our integrity as individuals, as Christians, right? As temples of the Holy Spirit, so forth. And so, I guess as life goes on, you become, in some ways, more appreciative of what you were taught in catechism. We had very much all the same kinds of activities and platforms open to us. We call it CYO, Catholic Youth Organization, and they used to have the dance, and and that's where you met your first girlfriend, maybe, and things like that, and you call it YCO or something.
Yeah, YCO.
Yeah. Okay. And then we had the Newman Associations in college, which was Cardinal Newman. Saint Cardinal Newman now. Okay. And we had various platforms, very similar. And I agree with your point. We really need to see the value in these things, because sometimes they're just sort of there for window dressing. Back to the point, though. Through those youth organizations, they can learn the catechism. What does it mean to be a temple of the Holy Spirit? What does it mean to carry your dignity as a young woman or as a young man? And in the context of relationship, because the thing that's most complicated and causes the most difficulty and anxiousness and joy and grief is when you come into your full, adult, your womanhood or your manhood, right? And then how do you fit that together between men and women, and how do you conduct it in such a way where it's glorious in its outcome? And the teaching is we're called to be the two made one. That is so fantastic. We should really put that right up on the top. And everything about family and life and defense of dignity comes from how wonderful and beautiful it is that God fashioned them so that they're like puzzle pieces that fit. In every sense of the word fit, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And God is man, the glory of God is man fully alive, said St. Athanasius, or woman fully alive. And you're fully alive when a couple is like that. They're just so, and so the whole teaching in the CYO, or so you call it, the YCS, should be programmed into that very explicitly. The St. John Paul II's theology of the body should be compartmentalized into, Instagram length little chapters and done in a way which is accessible and celebrated, because it is so glorious, the vision of how a woman and a man are completed in the union, which is open to each other and to God. So you have the horizontal unification of each other, so you become like super glue against all of the things that are thrown at you in this life. And the super glue is that you also have the vertical relationship. So you're open to life, relationship with God, and then through that relationship you're open to each other, you combine with each other, and guess what comes out of that spark source, that crucible? New life. My goodness, with a mother and a father who love you and stay together. Because they're bound by the sacrament and the special grace, the gift of God, in the sacrament of marriage. And then, stoked like the fire needs to be stoked by Eucharist and reconciliation, these other wonderful sources of grace, right? That's the ideal. And talk about it full on, and talk about sexuality in that context. And why it's important to keep oneself in dignity for the sake of your eventual spouse. And then how wonderful it is in every sense, not just spiritually and psychologically and emotionally, but even physically. It's a glimpse of heaven when a man and woman are perfectly united and ongoing forever. It's a glimpse of heaven, just as the Eucharist is a glimpse of heaven. where Jesus at Calvary. It's a heaven moment on this earth. So it is that Eucharistic love is very much that love between a man and a woman. It's Eucharistic. And I think it was in my early 20s, I went and saw a theologian speaking on this. And I went to him after and I said, are you saying that the proper understanding of the body and blood, soul and divinity of Jesus that we receive, and we should be in good state of order to receive, and we are feminine, by the way, and that's masculine, is in a way just like the perfect union between a man and woman? And he just looked at me and he said, exactly. It's the same thing. Now that's inspiring. And that helped keep me more or less from falling into the culture as it was falling down. That one interaction, plus built on a lot of my parents and other things, intrigued me so that I started reading about it. So if you had that in your youth programming, just something like that, it is like the love between a husband and wife, a man and woman, is the love of Jesus on the cross for us. It's the same thing. And it can be done. It's real. It's possible. So there can be reason to hope, reason to believe that you can, despite all the muck that's gone on in your family, your life, in your organization, things can shine. So anyway.
All right. I'm super mesmerized with the knowledge that you have. And I think our fifth floor or level 5, as Tobias called it, is suiting you. And with that, I think we're going to take a very short break. But when we come back, we shall talk about maybe how the institutions, as we mentioned, about the YCS, they can also help to improve. And apart from the Catholic, church, we also have other denominations. How can they also be involved and practice these life and family advocacy? And with that, we're going to take a very short break, so stay tuned for this. And in case you still have any question to our guest today, you can send them on 0717424866, or you can use our SMS number, that is 21760, and they will be able to get back to you. Stay tuned, we'll be back shortly.
Enjoy this conversation with me, Maureen Kimani, every Friday from 9 a.m. on our Health Corner show here at CAPUCHIN TV. Your health is your wealth.
Daily devotions for Africa. I'm going to follow Jesus.
This is to help kids grow in faith, wisdom, and develop a habit of daily prayers and build their relationship with Jesus Christ and church. Train the young in the way they should go, even when old, they will not swerve from it. Living Faith Kids.
Daily devotions for Africa.
God is good all the time, and all the time God is good, and that is nature. Wow. My name is Ignatius Raphael from Fatima, Our Lady of Fatima PMC. Welcome to Living Faith Kids Daily Devotion for Africa. Today verse comes from Luke chapter 9 verse 57. Today, Wednesday, October 4th, what does it mean to follow Jesus? Will you make a promise to follow Jesus wherever he goes? Today, Jesus taught not physically with us. He calls us to always follow his teachings. Live our lives as he lived, preaching, forgiving, and always doing good. As a child who desires to follow Jesus, you should always live a life of prayer, serving other people as Jesus served everyone. Lord Jesus, help prayer. Lord Jesus, help us to always desire your presence in our lives. Thank you.
Living Faith Kids.
Daily devotions for Africa. I'm going to follow Jesus.
This is to help kids grow in faith, wisdom, and develop a habit of daily prayers and build their relationship with Jesus Christ and church. Train the young in the way they should go, Even when old, they will not swerve from it. Living Faith Kids.
Daily devotions for Africa.
La misión está en el corazón de la iglesia. Y más aún, cuando una iglesia está en sínodo, solamente esa dinámica sinodal la lleva adelante la vocación misionera, es decir, la respuesta al mandato de Jesús de anunciar el Evangelio. Quisiera recordar que aquí no se acaba nada, sino que aquí continúa un camino eclesial. Se trata de un camino que recorremos como los discípulos de Maús, escuchando al Señor que siempre sale a nuestro encuentro. Es el Señor de la sorpresa. Por medio de la oración y el discernimiento, el Espíritu Santo nos ayuda a realizar el apostolado del oído, o sea, escuchar con los oídos de Dios para poder hablar con la palabra de Dios. Y así nos acercamos al corazón de Cristo, del que brota nuestra misión y la voz que atrae hacia Él. Una voz que nos descubre el centro de la misión, que es llegar a todos, buscar a todos, acoger a todos y buscar a todos sin excluir a nadie. Oremos por la Iglesia, para que adopte la escucha y el diálogo como estilo de vida a todos los niveles, dejándose guiar por la fuerza del Espíritu Santo hacia las periferias del mundo.
Enjoy this conversation with me, Maureen Kimani, every Friday from 9 a.m. on our Health Corner show here at CAPUCHIN TV. Your health is your wealth.
Welcome back, dear viewer, to our Health Corner show right here on CAPUCHIN TV with me, Maureen Kimani. And today our discussion is about Catholic youth engagement in life and family advocacy in Kenya. And in case you are joining us right now, we have two guests. Those are two gentlemen. On my far right, we have Tobias Nairuki, who is an African youth coordinator in Empowered Youth Coalition. And right next to me, we have Gregory Shea, parishioner, Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Parish, Ngong Road. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and welcome back to our second part of the conversation. Well, and as I promised before we had gone for the break, I mentioned that when we come back, because we've been mentioning about the Catholic Church, maybe we have some people who are not Catholics and they're watching us. How can they have these other maybe organization and institution help other denomination to ensure that they advocate for life and family? Tobias, maybe you can take that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Since the beginning, when God created man, before he created a woman to join the man, there was no religion. But the man recognized God as his creator. So religion came by with the time when Jesus came and preaching to us. things became so good and people identify themselves into religions. Now we have Muslims, we have the Protestants, we have Evangelical and the Catholic Church. Where I sit as the Empowered Youth Coalition Africa Regional Coordinator, we bring all these religions together. And we've been asking each and every religion, identify yourself and align with the issues, because life and family advocacy affects all of us. When the Supreme Court recently pronounced again, turning down the petition that was made by Honorable Peter Kaluma, asking the court to review the judgment, it wasn't targeting the Catholic Church, neither the Evangelical Protestant. It is affecting the entire family setup. So the Christian Union for Students in Institutions and the Catholic Students Association in Institutions are one. What we are calling upon them is now the leadership of the churches, the leadership of the Muslim community, to say, here is an issue. How can we engage the young people from your jurisdiction? I'm a Catholic, you're a Muslim, we are one created by God. Because when we speak one language, when we speak one language of life, speak one language of defending the dignity of the family, all of us, we are in the same boat. So the Muslim community also have their doctrines they follow. The Protestants and Evangelicals also have the same doctrine. Can they incline an essence of life and family advocacy into that program? The programs they run with the young people, have the mentors mentoring the young people, so that all of us can be able to move in one pot. I can give one of the key areas we've been doing. Today we are present in almost all the 54 countries. All these 54 countries, we have around a quarter of the countries are Muslim, like Egypt, part of Morocco. In Kenya, we also have Muslims. Evangelical churches and Protestant churches are too many also as well across the continent. But how are we moving together? We are moving together, speaking one language of life and family. The element of Catholicity, Protestant, Evangelical is not there. But when it comes back now to our churches, we assemble as Protestants, we assemble as Muslims, now talking to the young people. For you to grow and have a better family, these are the elements you ought to have. Preach chastity and practice it in your life setup. Preach protection of the life, but ensure advocate for abortion. Speak on the language of running away from lesbianism and homosexuality and be able to do the right thing. Just to highlight but a few, the Archbishop of the Anglican Church of Kenya, Archbishop Ole Sapit, was my good friend. When the Church of England was struggling to mention that we are going to bless the homosexuals, they stood up firmly and said, no, for us, in Africa, we are preserving our culture. As much as we respect you as our head church, we respect our cultural practices and the doctrine the church has moved on since its settings. So that alluded to us that indeed, when it comes to family protection, the church stands up and doesn't matter which religion. We protect the same family, we have been brought up, and we are moving forward as young people to have our own family settings.
All right, thank you very much, Atubes, for that. And we all know that family is the foundation of a good society. Well, and maybe Gregory, having been in Kenya for 10 years, correct? Maybe you can share some stories or achievement that you have witnessed of this pro-life and pro-family.
Yeah, there's lots to talk about. I know that in recent times, this ecumenical approach that Tobias has been engaged in has really started to flower. I was to Kampala just over a year ago, and they instituted a Ugandan coalition for family and life. 23, I think, different groups, from Catholic, Evangelical, Pentecostal, Muslim. The whole range were there, and their representatives were there, and it was very crowded. Press conference, and there were members of parliament, and I was very impressed by that. And then I found out that subsequently now, this is spread to the East African. So I think there's a similar group in Kenya and a similar group in Tanzania and Rwanda, and now they're also grouping at the East African level, and then again at the Pan-African level. So this is very dynamic, and I've been involved just sort of helping support it as I do with LifeSite News, not in a leading role, but in a kind of helping provide resources and some guidance. But it's really, it's autonomous. It's from the African, and it's very youthful. The average age of the people involved would be in their 20s and 30s. So all of this is new to me because, again, I've lived through, and we're downstream. We can tell you what it gets to look like. It's not so pretty. In the West, you don't have those fundaments as much. It's in a much greater state of confusion and division. And do you know the word disintegrate?
Yeah.
Disintegrate. It's disintegrative. And that's the Satan's calling card. He loves to debase, defile, and disintegrate because he's so resentful that God would elevate humans above the highest of angels, especially that woman, which is what he's referred to according to a lot of mystics, our dear Mother Mary. So that anger comes in trying to undo and demean and get us to get at each other. And that's what we see is happening. And if you're in the West, you see it much more clearly. And you see the starts of it here, but there's a wonderful reaction which is ecumenical, that the Muslims, Christians, and Catholics are coming together. We're starting to see it in Canada. We just had something called the Million March, where 1 million people, it's actually much more than 1 million, from across Canada organized. It was about a week ago. And it was being written off by the mainstream media as a bunch of whack jobs and fascists and the rest of it. The awkwardness for the mainstream media, though, was that it was led by the Muslims, which are a very young and small community in Canada, only from recent immigration. The Muslims led it, and then the Catholics and evangelicals joined them, and it became huge overnight. So there comes a point when the light shines through the darkness. And I think that it's starting to happen in the West, but it's much stronger here in Africa. And that's why I like to think that Africa could sort of help be a pilot light for all of us, and especially the youthfulness of Africa, the energy that's there. Getting back to the last conversation, that those youth organizations really need to be mobilized to make it happen and to hold the line so that your court doesn't further degenerate and disintegrate your society. It's happening, but it's not too late. So that's why I'm excited to be here and support you guys as much as I possibly can to hold the line.
All right, thank you very much. And I can see Tobias is ready, holding the microphone. It's like you want to add on something.
Yeah, you've talked of the success. When we were coming here yesterday, the chairperson of the Kenya Christian Professionals Forum, Mr. Charles Kanjama, yesterday shared a success story, and I was like, oh, we've been battling this conversation of protection of the family for a very long time now, since the previous regime. Yesterday, the cabinet adopted the national family policy. The national family policy contains all these issues we are talking about the protection of the family on the larger perspective. And it has been a battle for a very long time. And how did it come up to this end? The Kenya Christian Professionals Forum has all the denominations in one boat. The ecumenism is the language in that forum, where professionals from the Catholic Church, the Protestants, the evangelical came together and formed one body. So they have been advocating for this for a very long time. Another success story I can mention to talk about now other religions, the Africa Christian Professionals Forum. Now this is a forum for all the Christians from different denominations across the continent. What Greg was talking about, the Pan-African Forum. And we have done an amazing work. I remember when I first met the father of Africa, so we call him, His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni in Uganda, in State House Entebbe. He told us one thing. The moment the Africans, we realize that we have our own families to protect, we will not look back and say we are looking for donations to come in our continent. When we have the food, we can be able to prepare for our own. And that the conversation we had in State House, that point, we had Muslims, we had the Christians drawn from the different denominations. And it was a success story because after the conversation, what we had, he signed the bill into law. Now it's an act of parliament that's protecting the family. There are so many success stories, like in Malawi recently, the Honorable Member of Parliament, I appreciate him, the ACP, EU Head of Delegation, Honorable Ashem Songwe, who moved to the members of parliament from the entire continent to speak on one language, protection of life and family, without bothering where you come from, the denomination, but standing on the African culture, protecting our values, protecting our family setup, and then also looking back and say, defending the life of that unborn child that tomorrow become a leader. So there's a hallmark of success stories I can mention. The young people have a chance to learn from these success stories. Personally, I can say I'm a success story of myself because I'm here because my mom protected me. She didn't kill me. I was born, raised up as a young person today. I'm now growing up into a better young person. Today, Greg is celebrating. He's now, he just mentioned he's level 6. So heading to level 7. So at the point I'll be reaching his age, where will I? So when I start to talk about the issues of protecting the young people from the woke issues that are coming from the West, these are conversations that all denominations should start talking about from today, so that the Muslim community, when I meet a Muslim friend of mine, let's say Mohammed, and I meet Salma from another country, or Halima, the conversation not about Halima's religion, to be about defending Halima, to have a born baby next year or whichever, and have a very strong family. Not to talk about she's pregnant, and then I identify an abortion center in the streets of Nairobi. She will do that, but later on, we will start to cry because she will lose her life.
Very true. Wow, that's well elaborated. Thank you very much, Tobias, for that insight. And maybe, Gregory, you can take this one. When you talk about technology and social media, so many youths are influenced, and we understand that technology and social media has a huge influence when it comes to the youth, because everyone owns a smartphone. Everyone has a tablet, or maybe they have a TV and they can be able to access the YouTube. How can these platforms like TikTok, we have Instagram, Facebook, how can they be used, especially when you're talking about the youths, to ensure that they advocate for life and family?
Well, yeah, technology is neutral. It can be used for good or bad purposes.
Very true.
And what I find, though, is, in my experience, both where I grew up in the West and then in China and now here, the different generations of the internet. We're now in the Web 3, right? So I remember Web 1, I was working for HP in China, and we were introducing this thing called the internet.
Okay.
And then Web 2 was like, I was with BlackBerry at that time, which is all about the mobile phone, right? And now Web 3 is ChatGPT and other crazy things, right? There tends to be a lag, though, because adoption and familiarity with technology is skewed towards youth. And older people who may be level 4, 5, 6, or 7 or whatever tend to be pretty clumsy with these things, or not even using them at all. So normally in society, if you look at classic society from hundreds of years ago in the West, it was the same as it has been until recently here. You had family integrated in one house and in one village, and there wasn't a lot of movement, right? It was an exception that you go one horse cart ride away to the next market town. And in most people's lives, they did that 2 or 3 times. That's it. So then otherwise they had this wonderful integratedness with their elders. And the elders would be able to share their war stories and show the scars and things to avoid. But when it comes to the modern world, it's moving so fast. And it's so whipping around from all over that content and experiences that are totally out of context, like from the West, come in through Instagram and TikTok into the current African situation where the median age is 19. And the elders are less and less around because now people are moving into the city, the same pattern. So they don't have the benefit of as much contact with the elders who can sort of help them, nor do the elders able to participate in that technology because they can't figure it out. So there's this tension from the introduction of technology and for the ability for us to catch up to it. So the best response is to get involved in this. We were talking about AfroViva and so forth, to get a youth-led movement of Catholics and Christians and others who believe in these values to start to create their own platforms, their own content, to go onto those platforms so that it can be effective counterpoint to the sort of attack on the culture that we see coming in from all over the place, right? And women today I've seen are bragging about how they can play the rich guys in Dubai, you know, for getting a Mercedes or getting this thing. And this is celebrated. And it's sort of like, wow, there needs to be equally attractive, youthful content from people like yourselves out there on platforms saying, wow, how wonderful it is to be perfectly matched, or at least loving each other and supported by the grace of the sacraments.
Yeah.
You know, that's eye candy that takes you away from this other fake stuff. It's all that glitters is not gold. And this glitters, but it's death, right? And all the abortion and attack on euthanasia and the rest of it is a downstream consequence of the fundamental break in the belief that we made for this, we're made for something better. So the challenge then to the youthful Kenyans and Africans is use your knowledge, because us older folks are not so good at it, to create the platforms. You will get the resources and the guidance from the elders, but you really do go make your own youth media, digital media. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Gregory, for that insight. Tobias, maybe you can tell us, when you take a look at the age gap of the youth, they're either in high school or they're in university, and these people, they don't have jobs. Are there any maybe resources for them to ensure that they keep them running as they are advocating for these pro-life and pro-family?
Thank you. That's where business ideas come in. We have entrepreneurship. Social media is another platform, as Greg has said, because of the transformation that we are having today, the transitions we are having today from the previous Googles here said, now we are having ChatGPT now sorting out their problems. We have TikTok. Now the young people are running away from YouTube. They're now purely on TikTok, which is paying off, but the content that is there is not good. So the young people have so many chances of growth. We don't have to wait for us to go and get white-collar jobs in towns, cities like Nairobi, Kisumu, or wherever. But we have a chance to use the existing platforms that we have at our presence, produce content, as Greg has put it, right? And sell the content. The young people are talented in many ways. There are those who are talented in music. I can give an example of there's a team of young people from Kisii. They sing SDA songs. They call themselves Sani Records. And they sing beautiful songs. And they have produced this song for now a while. Their YouTube viewership is increasing. When we have such young people, there's also our Catholic lady, I've forgotten her name, who sings alone, and she's making good progress. When a young person identifies him or herself, where am I strong at? Then you look around and find your colleagues whom you align with. Then start working on yourself, getting people to support you. Even you can start a studio, as small as it is in your house or wherever. And then people will come in to support you. Start your TikTok, but produce content that is good. Don't produce content that will make the LDL not to support you. When you align yourself, consistently produce content that aligns with the Catholic Church or wherever religion you are in, people will come in to support you. Then another way also, the young people are running away from home. They look back at home, they see land, they don't want to go back at home, so that their parents will ask them to go and farm. And they come in the city. When they come in the city, the only thing they're doing now is using shortcuts to get wealth, which is very wrong. And that's why we're having prostitution and so many manner of things that are being done, mostly the young people. But the moment we realize that there's potential in also farming, doing farming back at home, or asking your parent, I'm good at farm, I don't have a job, can you give me 20,000 or a space, I can do farming, either vegetables. From that small scale farming, you will grow up in a very big farmer. But today the young people are not doing that. And the Catholic Church or whichever religion, Muslim or Pentecostal, they are ready to support that. The only thing the young people are lacking is the idea, implementing the idea and getting the right colleague young people to support the same idea to do the right thing. Lastly, to mention, and I feel so sad when I hear about this, the young people having a perception that business is for the old people, and jobs is either you work in the office or there's no job. That's what is killing us. Even being a boda rider is now business. Being a matatu conductor is also business. But how do you utilize the cash you get is a problem.
All right. Thank you very much, Tobias. And with that, insight and enlightenment, you're going to come into the end of our program today. But before we do that, I'd love to give you at least 1 minute, both of you, or even some few seconds just to share your parting shot or your takeaway on the youth engagement, life and family is concerned, the advocacy here in Kenya. Yes, Gregory, starting with you.
Okay. Well, thanks again for the wonderful opportunity to spend this time, and Tobias as well. I just think that, you can see the glass is half empty or half full. I tend to be a half full. And as much as there's challenges here and there's difficulties, economy, politics, society, there's enormous energy and enormous opportunity. And the church is there as a resource. Other communities are coming together, as I mentioned. There's a nice counter narrative to the depressing one about the world's going to hell in a handbasket. If you want to see that narrative, you can scroll and catch it all day long. But if you're open to the idea that God never leaves us abandoned, He's always there, and there's always purposefulness to His plan, and there's a love for us, and He's calling us to love authentically, and the core of defense of the family is defense of the belief that we are loved, we're made to love and be loved, and that's where we architect everything, from the relationship between a husband and wife and their love for their children and their love in the community. It's still very viable in Africa. It's underwater in the West. But again, they're humans made in the same light and dignity as Africans. They just need to be missionized by Africans. But we need to let's stoke it strong here, where you still have a youthful and sort of hopeful community. Let's keep adding fertilizer to that and see it grow beautifully. And then the rest of us will benefit in due course.
All right. Thank you very much, Gregory. Yes, Tobias, lastly.
Thank you so much. What I can say, we have a role to play as young people. Let us be ourselves. Choose yourself. Do everything you can to mold yourself and be ready to learn. Once you're ready to learn, you'll get all these things done, and be ready also to be engaged, participate, and do a lot. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much to both of you. And because the time is not on our side, I understand we have another program coming up. Thank you very much to all of you who have been tuned in on this conversation right here on our Health Corner show at Capuchin TV with me, Maureen Kimani. I'm wishing you a blessed day, and let us all stay together and engage ourselves in positive and ensuring that our society and communities' values are preserved. May God bless you and have a nice time. See you next time.
Enjoy this conversation with me, Maureen Kimani, every Friday from 9 a.m. on our Health Corner show here at Capuchin TV. Your health is your wealth.
Peace be people,
The name Mother Teresa resonates well to Catholics the world over as the one saint of modern times who broke all barriers, religious, cultural, social, racial, and economic to embrace the poorest of the poor in the contemporary human society. Did you know that Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta, India, as she was popularly known, was not born anywhere near India? Agnes Gonjaboyanjiu was born on 26 August in the year 1910 in Skopje, North Macedonia, and died in Calcutta, India on 5th September in the year 1997. She was beatified or declared blessed by Pope now Saint John Paul II on 19th October in the year 2003. She was canonized or declared saint by the current Holy Father, Pope Francis, on 4th September in the year 2016. Having founded the first religious congregation of the Missionaries of Charity Sisters in the year 1950, the last born congregation of Mother Teresa, Missionaries of Charity Fathers, was born in the year 1984. Who are the Missionaries of Charity Fathers and what do they stand for?
We are very grateful for Mother, and in our priestly way, we try to complement what the other branches of the society do, and they inspire us with their gospel witness as well. So we're one family, one heart in the heart of Our Lady, and we're trying to do the Lord's work here in Kenya. We came to Kenya in 2001, and I was in that first group. I was 3 priests and 1 deacon, and it was September, just after the towers came down in New York. We came from Europe, so air travel was still possible from Europe, and I arrived on the 13th of November 2001, and we started our first community in Pangani, which is in Isli. And it's a mission house. We have a feeding program. We have a little kind of clinic for doing first aid and things that we can't handle. We send to the local St. Teresa's. They have a nice clinic there. We have kind of an informal Saturday lessons for kids that aren't in school and trying to get them constructively occupied. There's a lot of things that happen in Pangani, but that is in Isli. We are now in the formation house, which is Rimpa. It's towards Kisedian. And this is where we have our pre-novitiate and novitiate.
Here in Kenya, the spiritual and corporal works of the Missionaries of Charity Fathers are continuing to bear fruits of both witness and vocations.
I felt that God was calling me to serve, especially people who are very marginalized. And I didn't know about Missionaries of Charity. And so I went to my parish. I picked up, I used to go there for adoration every Saturday for the youth. So I got a directory of various congregations in Kenya, and I picked 3 of them. And amongst the 3, one was Missionaries of Charity. So when I text the message, so the Missionaries of Charity were the first to reply. And I said, by then, internet were not so much spread. And so I went to the internet to check what type of community is this. And so when I went to check on the internet, I saw we are the Missionaries of Charity Fathers, and we are serving the poorest of the poor, the prisoners, the street, and the sick in hospitals. Then I said, wow, this is what I've been looking for. And so I communicated with the spiritual director, vocational director, and he invited me for come and see. So I came. The experience was not such easy because they are serving street, the very, very marginalized people. It was a little bit not easy, but with the time I asked Lord, if really this is what you call me, give me the grace to love it. And with the time I felt this is where I belonged, and I accepted that this is my charism. And when they gave me admission, I came and joined, not for me, but for the society at large, and also for those whom we serve, the poorest of the poor.
In the world today, many young people are trapped in the labyrinth of identity crisis. Search for happiness and fashionable trends is amplified by the social media and FM stations. Yet the clear voice of God is wonderfully being received on Vocations FM at the bottom many hearts. from the United States of America to Europe and Africa.
So my name is Zachary Wiersham. I'm from the United States, from the Diocese of Galveston, Houston, which is in Texas. I came to know the Missionaries of Charity Fathers when I was in university, at Marquette University. And I was just inspired one day by Mother Teresa. So I looked up on my phone during a lecture, Mother Teresa Priests. From there I saw the website. I felt very attracted to the simplicity and the radical sacrifice that such a life requires.
So my name is Adrian Kronka. I'm coming from Slovakia, from a small diocese in the north of the country called Žilina Diocese. And the first time I came to know about Missionaries of Charity was from a priest who is a Missionary of Charity father, and he's from my hometown. So as a 16 years old young man, I was invited to go and visit him in Rome, in Italy, with a group of youth. So the first time I came across the Missionaries of Charity, met the sisters, met the brothers, and I felt strong attraction already in that young age. And then it was facilitated by working with them for 5 years as a volunteer.
Kujua shirika la wamishonari wa upendo niliwajua kupitia kwa mtawa mmoja ambaye alikuwa anafanya kazi kwenye parokia yangu kule Jinja. Nilijiunga na wamishonari wa upendo mwaka wa 2021. Saa hizi niko kwa stage ya wanaita Postland na ni mwaka wa pili katika shirika. Nashukuru Mungu kwa sababu naona mambo inaenda sawa.
As many youth seek to climb the socio-economic ladder to fame and celebrity statuses, there is still strong faith in the God who calls young men and women to climb down the same ladder and serve Him in the poorest of the poor.
I'm most looking forward to going into the slum and being a father to the fatherless, going to those people who have nobody and who have no one to help them, and doing the little that I can with as much love as I'm able to give. That's what's going to give me most fulfillment and purpose as I continue on this vocation, and what I'm looking forward to most, hopefully one day becoming a priest with the Missionaries of Charity Fathers. It's a call to serve. And I think young men, deep down, they want and they need to serve. We have a need to protect. And that the priesthood is not, at least when you come from the United States, it's actually a step down economically and socially. In other countries, it's a step up. You get a car, you get so many other different things, you get money. But for us, it's, especially after the sexual abuse scandals.
There are a lot of witness stories to write home about. Positive, encouraging good news.
Natuma salamu zangu kwa baba paroko wangu kule parokia Mtakatifu Paulo Jinja na msaidizi wake. Wakristu wote wa Mtakatifu Paulo Jinja, Wakristu wangu wapendwa wa Mtakatifu Maria, kanisa ndogo ya Mkunyuku, na watuma salamu pia kwa wazazi wangu wapendwa.
There are still faith events in the lives of Missionaries of Charity Fathers to celebrate about.
And so I take this chance as well to give the invitation to all the MC world, Missionaries of Charity, friends, benefactors, all the poorest of the poor that we serve, that they may come and celebrate with us. But also to invite even those who may not be able to come. That we have the presence of CAPUCHIN TV. They can even view live from the TV so that they can participate with us in this wonderful occasion of the gift of priesthood.
On Friday, 6th October, CAPUCHIN TV will join the Missionaries of Charity Fathers during the priestly ordination of Deacon Solomon Onyansi Maticha. The Holy Mass will take place at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Parish Church in Goroi, Ngong Diocese from 10 a.m., led by Most Reverend Philip Anyolo,
Archbishop of Nairobi. This event will come to you live here on CAPUCHIN TV and on our social media handles. CAPUCHIN TV congratulates the missionaries of Charity Fathers on this occasion. Keep watching your staunchly Catholic identity channel, CAPUCHIN TV.
Malaika mbinguni wanalimba, usiku na mchana wanalimba, wakisema Ave, Ave Maria, jina la Maria.
Kanisa Katoliki kote duniani lina desturi ya kumheshimu Mama Bikira Maria kwa namna ya kipekee katika mwezi wa 5 au Mei na mwezi wa 10 ama Oktoba. Kwa miaka michache iliyopita, Kanisa Katoliki hapa nchini kupitia kwa Baraza la Maaskofu wa Katoliki almaarufu KCCB huandaa siku ya maombi ya kitaifa kwenye mlima wa Bikira Maria mama yetu wa Subukia.
Nyuma yangu ni kanisa linaloendelea kujengwa kwa heshima ya mama yetu Bikira Maria wa mlima wa Subukia hapa Subukia. Nje ya kanisa hili ni uwanja ambao kila mwaka maelfu ya waumini kutoka pembe zote za jimbo Katoliki hapa nchini wanakusanyika Jumamosi ya kwanza ya mwezi wa 10 kwa sala ya kitaifa, ambapo mwaka huu inaangukia tarehe ya 7 ya mwezi wa 10. Sherehe ya Bikira Maria wa Rozari inatarajiwa kwamba watafika zaidi ya waumini 35,000 kutoka pande zote.
Siku hii ya maombi ya kitaifa hufanyika kila Jumamosi ya kwanza mwezi wa 10. Mpangilio wa kuadhimisha siku hiyo ni kwamba kupitia kwa Tume ya Haki na Amani, ambayo sasa inajulikana kama Idara ya Haki na Amani, baraza hilo la maaskofu hutoa kauli mbiu ama wazo kuu ambalo huwasaidia waumini kusali kwa jambo maalum. Maombi hayo ya kitaifa huongozwa na muungano wa jimbo Katoliki mbalimbali ambazo zimegawanywa katika makundi 4 kama wilaya za zamani. Kwa lugha ya Kimombo, mkusanyiko wa jimbo nyingi za kanisa huitwa Ecclesiastical Province ama Metropolitancy.
Tunawaalika wote tarehe 7 mwezi wa 10, barabara zote zaelekea hapa katika shrine yetu, tuweze kuja kwa pamoja, tuweze kuomba. Tuombee wanafunzi wetu wanaojitayarisha kwa mitihani yao. Tuombee nchi yetu hiyo na amani na maendeleo. Tuombee familia tuweze kukua kama kitu kimoja. Kwa hivyo kama askofu, msimamizi wa katika baraza la maaskofu kwa kitengo cha Pastoral and Lay Apostolate, na walika nyote tuweze kuja tujumuike pamoja, tusherekee, tumshukuru Mungu yale ambayo ametubariki nayo na kumuomba baraka zake azidi kuwa nasi kama nchi ambayo tumeikabidhi kwake kama Mungu na Mwokozi wetu. Tuombee maendeleo ya nchi yetu, upatanishi, vyama tofauti vya wanasiasa ili tuweze kuongea lugha moja, familia iweze kusimama ikiwa dhabiti, mabwana wapende bibi zao, mabibi vile vile, na kuwapenda watoto wetu. Watoto wanapitia changamoto nyingi sana, hali ya madawa, kichwa ngumu katika shule, ukosefu wa mahali pa kuajiriwa. Haya yote tunayapeana kwake Mwenyezi Mungu, lakini pia tufurahi tukiwa chini ya Mama Maria ambaye anatuambia, tunaambiwa hakuna yeyote alikuja kwa Mama Maria na kumwomba chochote akabaki bila kutimiziwa. Mama Maria, tunaomba kupitia kwako ili Kenya iwe nchi ya amani na tuishi tukiwa watu ambao wamepatanisha.
Jumamosi tarehe 7 mwezi wa 10 ndio siku ya maombi hayo ya kitaifa mwaka huu. Kwenye kalenda ya kanisa takatifu, tarehe 7 ya mwezi wa 10 kanisa Katoliki humheshimu Bikira Maria kwa sifa ya mama yetu wa Rozari takatifu. Kama kawaida, maombi hayo yatafanyika kwenye mlima wa mama yetu wa Subukia kwenye jimbo Katoliki la Nakuru.
Katika mlima huu unaitwa mlima wa Subukia ama mlima wa Mama Maria, tangu ilipoanza imekuwa ni sehemu moja ya muhimu sana katika kukuza imani katika jimbo letu la Nakuru na hata kukuza imani katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Hivi tunaona kwamba mara kwa mara Wakristo wanakuja kutoka pembe zote wakija kusali. Ni mahali pana utulivu wa aina ya kipekee. Ni mahali ambapo pana mazingira yanayowezesha mtu kupatanishwa na Mungu na kuweza kusali katika njia ambayo inafaa. Wanakuja watu wengi kufanya retreats zao hapa, recollections zao hapa, na wengine pia wanakuja kufanya njia ya msalaba, na hayo yote yanasaidia katika kukuza na kulea imani yetu.
Ibada ya misa itaongozwa na metropoli ya Nairobi inayohusisha jimbo kuu la Nairobi, jimbo la Kitui, jimbo la Machakos, jimbo la Ngong, jimbo la Nakuru, jimbo la Kericho, jimbo la Jeshi na Kitinda Mimba, jimbo jipya la wote.
Waumini wote mnaalikwa na tunawaomba wahusika wote, hasa mapadri wote katika parokia zenu, muendelee kuwatangazia waumini katika matangazo, kuwahimiza umuhimu wa kujiunga na maaskofu wetu wote katika Jamhuri ya Kenya kwa maombi haya ya kitaifa. Na mada kuu mwaka huu katika moyo ule wa sinodi, tunaambiwa pale journeying together as a reconciled family, yani kusafiri pamoja kama familia iliyopatana au familia patanishi au familia ambayo inaishi maisha ya kindugu, maisha ya msamaha. Na Ijumaa kabla ya siku hii ya tarehe 7 mwezi wa 10 tutakuwa na misa ya vigilia. Kwa hivyo na waombeni tafadhali tuweze kukutana huko Subukia, tuweze kuombea taifa letu la Kenya, tuombee familia zetu, tuombee vijana wetu, muombe Mungu kwa nyakati hizi za uchumi tunazopitia. Mungu atupe nguvu na faraja, na kupitia maombezi ya mama yetu Bikira Maria. Na tunaambiwa katika maandiko kwamba sala inayotolewa katika jumuiya, katika wawili watatu au zaidi, na kwa imani, sala hiyo inamfikia Mwenyezi Mungu. So tunapoamini hivyo, tunapoomba kwa pamoja, tunapopiga magoti, tunaponyenyekea mbele za Mungu kwa pamoja, bila shaka Mungu ataendelea kuyasikiliza maombi yetu na kuibariki nchi yetu na kuitakasa, ili tuone ya kwamba basi tumeishi katika utulivu na matumaini na amani siku zote. So nasema karibuni sana sana siku hii, maana bila nyinyi waumini na watu wote wenye mapenzi mema, basi siku hii haiwezi kufana vile. So karibuni sana.
Tunaona kweli itafanyika vizuri. Kwetu ni kuendelea kuomba ili Mungu afanikishe hii siku, ili sisi sote tuje kuomba na kuomba hapa katika mji mtakatifu wa Mama Maria.
Inatarajiwa kwamba wanakuwa takriban 5,000 kutoka jimbo hizo watahusika.
Kunalingana na kila diocese. Kama Nairobi sisi tunahitajika tuwe 2,000, Nakuru wawe 1,000, DOD wawe 200, Kericho 500, Machakos 500, Kitui 500. Sasa tunaye diocese zingine ile imezarua juzi, wote hatujui watakuja wangapi.
Kati ya vivutio vikuu kwa maujaji kwenye mlima wa mama yetu wa Subukia ni maji ya baraka.
Katika imani yetu sisi wa Kristo wa Katoliki, maji ya baraka ni sehemu kubwa ya imani yetu. Tunaamini kwamba baraka za Mwenyezi Mungu zinatumiminikia kupitia kwa alama mbalimbali, na maji ya baraka ni sehemu mojawapo ambapo padre ama shemasi ama askofu anatumia maji ya baraka kubariki waumini na kubariki mali, maisha na vyombo vyao. Hapa kwenye mlima wa Subukia wa Mama Maria, wanaofika hapa mahujaji hawajihisi wamekamilika kabla hawajarudi nyumbani na maji ya baraka kwa ajili yao na kwa ajili ya jamaa zao. Kwa hivyo hapa tarehe 7 ya mwezi huu ama tarehe 7 ya mwezi ujao wa 10 itakuwa ni foleni ndefu, waumini wa Katoliki wakisadiki kwamba Mungu anawabariki kupitia kwa maji haya ya baraka. Maji ya baraka kwako yanatukumbusha ubatizo wetu, ambapo tuliondolewa dhambi ya asili, na Mwenyezi Mungu anaendelea kutubariki na kubariki mali yetu kupitia maji haya ya baraka. Kwa imani tunayabeba na kujibariki nayo.
Vile mahujaji hupeleka maombi yao kwa Mungu kupitia kwa Yesu Kristo na kwa maombezi ya Bikira Maria.
Kanisa ndogo iliyo nyuma yetu ndio ilikuwa kanisa la kwanza hapa kwenye mlima wa Mama, ambapo mahujaji wakija kwa imani wanapanda mlima huu, wanafika pale kwa hiyo kanisa ndogo, wanatoa sala zao kwa Mwenyezi Mungu kupitia kwa maombezi ya Mama Maria. Hapo wanaamini kwamba alivyowaambia wanafunzi pale kwenye Kana ya Galilaya, fanyeni atakalo waambia. Maombi, sala, shukrani za waumini zinafikia Yesu kupitia kwa maombezi ya Mama Maria.
Kwa udhamini wa Baraza la Maaskofu wa Katoliki hapa nchini, almaarufu KCCB, runinga Capuchin ndicho kituo tambulika na cha kipekee kitakachokuletea ibada hii Katoliki moja kwa moja utakapokuwa. Wewe ambaye kwa sababu moja ama nyingine hutaweza kwenda safari hadi Subukia.
Ningependa kuchukua fursa hii kuwakaribisha maaskofu, mapadri, watawa wa kiume na kike na Wakristo wote kwa jumla kutoka pembe zote za majimbo yetu ya hapa Kenya katika National Prayer Day ya mwaka huu, mwaka 2023, ambayo kiini chake ni kusafiri pamoja kama jumuiya moja ama kwa jumuiya patanishi. Hivyo ni kusema kwamba tunaendeleza ule mwito wa sinodi wa kutembea pamoja, tutembee pamoja kama familia ya nchi ya Kenya. Hivi tunajua yale mambo ambayo tunayapitia na tungependa tuje pamoja ili kuweza kumshukuru Mungu kwa yale ametujalia, na hata katika changamoto tulizo nazo pia kumwomba ili akaweza kutupa njia ya kuweza kupata suluhisho katika maisha ya watu wa Kenya, ili tuendelee kumcha Mungu na kumtukuza katika njia ambayo inafaa. Kwa hivyo ni kusema njooni tuombe pamoja, tumshukuru Mungu na tuombee jumuiya zetu, tuombee nchi yetu, makanisa yetu, familia zetu, ili tuwe tumepatanishwa, tupatanishwe na neno la Mungu, na zaidi ya yote Kristo mpatanishi wetu.
Jina tukufu na furahisha, linatutuliza. Malaika mbinguni wanaliimba, usiku na mchana wanaliimba, wakisema Ave, Ave Maria, jina la Maria.
Endelea kutazama runinga Capuchin, kitambulisho chako Katoliki.
Hello, viewer of Capuchin TV. My name is Father Bonaventure Lucidio. I am the National Director of the Pontifical Mission Societies, PMS. We are the mission societies, and there are 4 mission societies. The first one is called the Propagation of Faith, the Society for the Propagation of Faith. The second one is the Society of St. Peter the Apostle, and the third one is the Society of the Holy Childhood, and the fourth one is the Pontifical Missionary Union. These are worldwide networks of prayer and charity on behalf of the Holy Father in his solicitude for the young churches and mission dioceses in the world. There are 1,200 200 dioceses in the world that we call the mission dioceses. And all the 27 dioceses of Kenya are part of the mission dioceses. And so we are looking at the Pope, and through this kitty of the missions, we are supported to do our works of evangelization. We are called Christians because we are baptized. And after our baptism, we are sent to the whole world to be witnesses and ambassadors. One way in which we can become witnesses is through prayer. When we pray for the missionaries, when we listen to the stories of the missionaries doing great works in mission lands. And from those stories, we are energized, we are pulled, we are attracted to the works, and we say, what can I do? And what I can do is pray and give. Donate 50 shillings, 100, 200 to the PMS. And all this money is put together in a basket which we call the Solidarity Fund. And from the Solidarity Fund, dioceses in mission lands, bishops in mission lands, they make applications to these PMS, Pontifical Mission Societies, asking for support. And so we support these dioceses, we support these bishops to run their curia with an ordinary subsidy. We support these bishops to train the catechists through a catechist subsidy program. We stand with the bishops to build churches, to put up rectories and presbyteries, to put up convents for priests, religious men and women. We stand with the bishops in their quest to reach out to all peoples through the Catholic social media, and especially the TVs and radios, through the department called Signis, who support the Catholic radios and TV stations. We stand with the bishops in mission territories when we donate our shilling. And you can donate to us through our Paybill number 164085 and write missions, or write a check of 1 million, 100,000, write it to us so that we can do the work of evangelization. Write to us, KCCB PMS, and we shall receive, and what you give will go to the evangelization of this world. Thank you, and God bless you. On 22nd of October 2023 is World Mission Sunday. Our theme this year is Hearts on Fire, Fit